Number 10. Lascaux Cave, France. In September 1940, 4 teenagers following a dog into a hole in the French countryside near Montignac discovered one of the most significant archaeological sites ever found. The Lascaux cave complex contains over 600 paintings and nearly 1,500 engravings created approximately 17,000 years ago, depicting horses, deer, aurochs, cave lions, rhinoceroses, and bears with an anatomical precision and artistic sophistication that fundamentally changed how researchers understood the cognitive capabilities of prehistoric humans. The paintings use perspective, layering, shading, and composition in ways that were not supposed to be possible for 17,000 years ago. Some figures appear to move across the cave walls through the deliberate repetition of lines, an early understanding of visual animation. The site opened to the public in 1948. Within 15 years, it had received over 1,000 visitors per day. And within 15 years, the damage done by those visitors was irreversible. Human breath introduced carbon dioxide, heat, and moisture into a cave that had been hermetically sealed for 17,000 years. The stable atmospheric conditions that had preserved the paintings with extraordinary fidelity were destroyed almost immediately. Green algae, then white calcite deposits, then black fungus began appearing on the painted surfaces. French authorities closed the cave in 1963. Today, Lascaux receives exactly 5 researchers per week, for a maximum of 37 minutes each, wearing specialized protective clothing and breathing apparatus designed to minimize contamination. The number is not a compromise. It is the maximum the cave's current atmospheric conditions can sustain without further irreversible deterioration. The public cannot enter. The paintings that survived, 17,000 years in the dark, survived 48 years of human presence and did not recover. Number 9. Qin Shi Huang's tomb, China. In 1974, farmers digging a well in Shaanxi province, China, broke through into a pit containing thousands of life-size terracotta warriors. What they found was the outer perimeter of one of the most ambitious construction projects in human history. The mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of unified China, covers approximately 56 square kilometers. Over 700,000 workers spent 38 years building it. The outer complex contains more than 400 auxiliary tombs. The terracotta army alone numbers approximately 8,000 individual figures, each with distinct facial features, arranged in military formation and designed to guard the emperor in death. None of this has been opened. The central burial chamber, the core of the entire complex, remains completely unexcavated. It has been sealed for over 2,200 years. Ancient historian Sima Qian, writing approximately a century after the emperor's death, described the tomb's interior in his chronicle, the Shiji. A vast underground palace beneath a domed ceiling, inlaid with pearls to represent stars, with rivers and seas of flowing liquid mercury, representing the Yellow and Yangtze rivers and the surrounding oceans. Crossbow mechanisms were reportedly set throughout the interior, triggered by pressure, to kill anyone who entered without authorization. For centuries, this was considered mythology. In the 1980s, Chinese geophysical surveys of the soil surrounding the burial mound found mercury concentrations ranging from 30 parts per billion in surrounding areas to 1,500 parts per billion directly over the tomb, a distribution that, when mapped, corresponds almost exactly to the location of the rivers and seas as described by Sima Qian 2,000 years earlier. A 2020 study published in Nature confirmed these findings. The mercury is real. The Chinese government's official position is that the tomb will not be excavated until technology exists to safely preserve whatever is found inside. The experience of the terracotta warriors whose vivid painted surfaces faded and in many cases disappeared almost immediately upon exposure to air demonstrated what happens when ancient materials meet modern atmosphere. Without adequate preparation, the tomb that might contain the most elaborate underground palace ever built, guarded by rivers of liquid mercury and 2,000-year-old mechanical traps, is under a grass-covered hill that looks, from the surface, like an unremarkable mound in a Chinese agricultural landscape. Number 8. Göbekli Tepe's buried lower layers. Turkey. Göbekli Tepe is already the most disruptive archaeological discovery of the 20th century. A ritual complex of massive carved stone pillars dating to approximately 9,600 BC, over 6,000 years before Stonehenge. Over 5,000 years before the wheel built by hunter-gatherers, who were not supposed to have the organizational capacity to construct anything of this scale or sophistication. But the site that has been excavated is not the whole site, and the part that has not been excavated did not remain unexcavated accidentally. The builders of Göbekli Tepe deliberately buried their own construction. Multiple times, across what appears to be a period of centuries, the builders filled in completed enclosures with rubble and soil, then built new enclosures on top. The oldest and most sophisticated structures, Layer 3, containing the largest and most elaborately carved pillars, were buried by the builders themselves, intentionally, before the site was eventually abandoned. This deliberate burial is why the site survived. Buried structures are protected from erosion, weathering, and human disturbance in ways that surface structures are not. The act of hiding them preserved them. But why it was done remains genuinely unresolved. The enclosures were not abandoned because they were damaged or worn out. They were functional when they were buried. The pillars were not removed before filling, they remain in place inside the fill material. Multiple plausible explanations exist: ritual closure of sacred spaces, protection of important objects placed inside the enclosures, cyclical renewal ceremonies. None of them have been confirmed. The lower layers of Göbekli Tepe, the oldest sections, the ones the builders most deliberately buried, are not fully excavated. The site is enormous. Only a fraction of its surface area has been opened, and the sections that have been opened reveal increasingly complex and increasingly ancient structures the deeper excavation goes. What is in the deepest, oldest, most deliberately sealed sections of a site that was already rewriting human history before anyone reached the bottom has not yet been determined. The builders sealed it. 12,000 years later, archaeologists are still deciding whether to open it. Number 7. Zawyet, El Aryan. Egypt. 3 miles from the Great Pyramid of Giza, there is a site that has been sealed by the Egyptian military since 1964, and which has been given the informal designation Egypt's Area 51 by researchers who have studied it. Italian archaeologist Alessandro Barsanti excavated Zawyet El Aryan in the early 1900s and documented what he found with photographs that remain, to this day, the only comprehensive record of the site's interior. His images show a massive T-shaped shaft cut approximately 30 meters deep into natural limestone bedrock, its walls lined with enormous granite blocks, at the bottom of which he found a sealed oval vat of unknown material, measuring approximately 3 meters long and 2 meters wide and 1.5 meters deep. The vat was sealed when Barsanti arrived, suggesting it was designed as a closed container for something of significance. Whatever it contained has since been lost. The site also yielded a damaged dedication tablet bearing the name of King Jedefre, the son and immediate successor of Khufu, the builder of the Great Pyramid. If this identification is correct, Zawyet El Aryan represents an unfinished construction project from the 4th dynasty, the same period as the pyramids on the Giza Plateau. In 1964, the Egyptian military established a restricted zone around the site. No archaeological work has been permitted since. The official reason given at various points has been military security, given the site's proximity to a military installation. No further official explanation has been provided. The photographs taken by Barsanti over a century ago remain the only documentation of what is inside, a sealed shaft cut 30 meters into Egyptian bedrock, 3 miles from the Great Pyramid. And no one with the authority to grant access has chosen to do so in over 60 years. What was in the sealed oval vat is unknown. Why the military sealed the site is officially unexplained. Both questions remain open. Number 6. The Hall of Records. Giza. What we are about to describe is not confirmed. It is documented, debated, and officially denied. The distinction matters. Stay with us. In 1996, seismic surveys conducted by a team from Florida State University detected anomalies in the bedrock beneath the Sphinx at Giza chambers and passageways consistent with an excavated space of significant size directly beneath and adjacent to the monument. The survey was published in the Journal of the Society of Exploration Geophysicists and was not disputed on technical grounds. What was disputed was what to do about it. The Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities, under its then-director Zahi Hawass, denied permission for further investigation into the anomalies. The official position was that the survey results were ambiguous and that drilling or excavation at the Sphinx would risk damaging an irreplaceable monument. Independent researchers who have attempted to access the site for follow-up surveys have reported being denied permission without detailed explanation. The Egyptian Antiquities Organization has conducted its own surveys of the Sphinx and surrounding area. The results of those surveys have not been published in full. The concept of a hall of records beneath the Sphinx, a repository of ancient knowledge, has existed in esoteric literature for decades and is widely considered pseudoscientific speculation. What is not speculation is the 1996 seismic survey, the anomalies it detected, and the official refusal to investigate them further, using methods that would not damage the monument. Whether the anomalies represent natural geological formations, ancient construction, or empty space has not been determined. The investigation that would determine it has not been permitted. Number 5. Padmanabhaswamy, Temple Vault, B, India. In 2011, the Supreme Court of India ordered an inventory of the vaults beneath the Padmanabhaswamy Temple in Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, a Hindu temple that had been managed by the royal family of Travancore for centuries. What the inventory revealed made international news. Vaults A, C, D, E, and F contained treasures whose total estimated value, as assessed by the Supreme Court-appointed committee, exceeded $1 trillion, gold coins, diamond-encrusted objects, necklaces, statues, and artifacts accumulated over centuries of royal patronage. It was and remains the largest known collection of treasure ever discovered in a single location. Vault B remains sealed. The committee was unable to open Vault B. The vault's door has no conventional lock or bolt mechanism. It is secured by two large cobra symbols, and according to temple tradition, it can only be opened by a specific chant known only to ancient priests, a lineage of knowledge that may no longer exist. Local religious tradition holds that opening the vault without the correct ceremony would bring catastrophic consequences to the region. The Supreme Court has maintained the vault's sealed status. The royal family of Travancore, who retain traditional custodial rights, strongly oppose opening it. Seismic surveys have been proposed, but not conducted. Ground-penetrating radar assessments have suggested the vault's interior is substantially larger than the other vaults and may extend further beneath the temple complex than the accessible areas indicate. What is in Vault B is unknown. A vault that cannot be opened with conventional tools, whose tradition of sealed protection has been maintained across centuries, sits beneath a temple complex that has already yielded more material wealth than any comparable site in history. The cobra-sealed door has not been opened. Number 4. Chauvet Cave, France. In December 1994, 3 cave explorers, Jean-Marie Chauvet, Eliette Brunel, and Christian Hilaire, pushed through a narrow passage in a cliff face above the Ardèche River in southern France and found themselves standing in a cave that contained the oldest known art ever made by a human being. The Chauvet Cave contains over 1,000 drawings made between 32,000 and 36,000 years ago. Rhinoceroses, mammoths, cave lions, horses, hyenas, and owls, depicted with a skill, perspective, and anatomical precision that researchers described as a multi-layered revolution in the understanding of prehistoric human cognition. Some of the animal figures appear to be drawn in motion. Some show depth and foreshortening. Some are layered over earlier drawings, suggesting the cave was used across multiple generations by artists who were aware of what had been drawn there before them. The cave has been sealed since its discovery. No public access has ever been permitted. Access is restricted to a small number of researchers for limited periods under strict atmospheric monitoring. Not because the drawings are fragile in the ordinary sense, they survived 36,000 years, sealed in the dark, but because the fragility of the atmospheric conditions that preserved them is now understood. Any significant introduction of human-produced carbon dioxide, heat, or microorganisms risks beginning the same deterioration process that damaged Lascaux. A full-scale replica, the Caverne du Pont d'Arc, was built nearby and opened to visitors in 2015. The original cave will not open to the public. The UNESCO World Heritage listing explicitly states that public access is permanently excluded. 36,000 years in the dark, the oldest art in the world, and the decision was made almost immediately that the only way to preserve it was to seal it again. Number 3. The subterranean chambers of Thebes, Egypt. Beneath the ancient city of Thebes, modern Luxor ground-penetrating radar surveys, conducted between 2000 and 2010, revealed a network of subterranean chambers and passageways extending beneath the temple complexes of Karnak and Luxor that does not correspond to any known construction in the archaeological record of the site. The surveys were conducted as part of a broader mapping effort by the Egyptian government and international research institutions. The results identified multiple large void spaces beneath the existing temple foundations at depths and in configurations that suggested either an earlier layer of construction predating the New Kingdom temples built above them, or an elaborate system of subterranean spaces built alongside and beneath the temples for purposes not yet identified. Access to investigate these anomalies has not been granted. The official position of the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities is that excavating beneath the existing temples, which are themselves among the most important and fragile ancient structures in the world, carries unacceptable structural risk. The concern is legitimate and technically well-founded. Excavating beneath the foundations of Karnak without destabilizing structures that took 3,000 years to build and that millions of visitors walk through every year is not a simple engineering problem. But the chambers are there. Ground-penetrating radar does not fabricate returns. Something is beneath Karnak that has not been identified, that may predate the construction above it, and that the current state of archaeological technology cannot safely investigate without risking the monuments that sit on top of it. The temples remain open to visitors. The chambers beneath them remain unopened. Number 2. The Inner Sanctum of Newgrange, Ireland. Newgrange in County Meath, Ireland, is a Neolithic passage tomb built approximately 5,200 years ago, older than Stonehenge, older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. On the morning of the winter solstice, for approximately 17 minutes, a narrow shaft of sunlight enters through a precisely positioned roof box above the entrance and illuminates the floor of the inner chamber with such accuracy that it has been confirmed to have functioned exactly this way at the time of construction. The alignment of the building with the solstice sunrise is not incidental, but was engineered into the structure at the time of its design. The passage tomb has been excavated and partially opened. The main chamber and several side recesses are accessible to researchers. But beneath Newgrange, geophysical surveys, as part of the larger Brú-na-Bóinne archaeological complex mapping project, have identified anomalies suggesting the structure extends further underground than the current accessible areas reveal. More significantly, the excavation conducted by Professor Michael J. O'Kelly in the 1960s and 70s, the excavation that revealed the solstice alignment and fundamentally changed understanding of Neolithic engineering, was not complete. O'Kelly's excavation documented and opened sections of the monument that had been sealed for 5,000 years. Some areas were not opened because the excavation technology of the period was not considered adequate to preserve what might be found. Those areas were resealed when the excavation concluded. What was found in the open sections: cremated human remains, carved stone art, evidence of sophisticated astronomical knowledge, was significant enough that what remains in the sealed sections has been a subject of ongoing research interest since the excavation ended. Current Irish heritage policy does not permit further intrusive investigation of Newgrange. The technology to investigate non-invasively is improving, the sealed sections remain sealed. Number 1. The unopened vault of Alexander the Great's tomb. Alexander the Great died in Babylon in 323 BC at the age of 32. His body was embalmed and placed in a gold sarcophagus. What happened to it after that is one of the most actively researched and most persistently unresolved questions in classical archaeology. Ancient sources describe the body being transported to Alexandria, Egypt, where it was placed in a monumental tomb that became one of the most visited sites in the ancient world. Julius Caesar wept at it. Augustus Caesar reportedly accidentally broke off the nose of Alexander's mummified body during a visit. Multiple Roman emperors made pilgrimage to it. And then, around the 4th century AD, the tomb disappears from the historical record. No source after this period describes visiting it, locating it, or knowing with certainty what happened to it. The tomb of Alexander the Great has not been found. Over 300 excavations and surveys in Alexandria alone have failed to confirm its location. The leading candidates are the area beneath the Mosque of the Prophet Daniel in central Alexandria, where local tradition has located the tomb for centuries, the Siwa Oasis in the Egyptian desert, where Alexander made a significant pilgrimage during his campaigns, and areas beneath the modern city of Alexandria itself, where centuries of construction, flooding, and urban development have buried ancient layers under meters of accumulated occupation. In 1995, Greek archaeologist Liana Suvaltsi claimed to have found Alexander's tomb at Siwa. Egyptian authorities announced the claim was unsubstantiated and denied further access to the site. The site has been restricted since. In 2019, ground-penetrating radar surveys of the area beneath the Mosque of the Prophet Daniel detected anomalies consistent with a large subsurface structure. Egyptian authorities have not permitted excavation. The body of the man who conquered roughly half the known world in 12 years, who died at 32 in possession of an empire stretching from Greece to India, who was visited in death by every major Roman emperor for 3 centuries, is somewhere beneath the streets of a modern city of 5 million people, or beneath a desert oasis, or somewhere else entirely. The most searched-for tomb in classical archaeology has not been found, and in the areas where it might be, the permits to look are not being issued. 10 sites, some sealed for preservation, some sealed by governments with no explanation, some sealed by the people who built them before anyone else arrived to ask why, and one not yet found, but in the places where it might be, the decision has been made not to look. The honest question this raises is not conspiratorial, it is simpler than that. Every time a site is sealed, the reason given is reasonable. Preservation, security, structural risk, religious tradition. Every reason is legitimate and defensible on its own terms. The question is why, when you add them all together, the pattern is always the same direction: sealed.